Hello Neverwinter. Here we have the next installment in the How to Tank series by yours truly. We will be looking at Master Shackles of Divinity, and this is quite a fun trial. I know that there's been a few complaints about some sections of it, and I understand them. Can be a little bit tricky, especially if you're only getting a very short amount of play time in here because you're dying at those sections and then the group breaks up or whatever. Hopefully this video will clear up a few of those things. The build I'm using here today I've already put up on the channel, so if you're curious about that you can go check it out. Yeah, so I mean the general strategy for this is going to depend on where you're tanking. I tank to the right. As a fighter tends to have more survivability when they're left on their own. So if you are the fighter and there's only one fighter, probably better for you to opt to be on the right hand side, just to take some pressure off the other tank and the healers. One thing to say about the right side is that you will be out of range of the healers in a lot of occasions, so you will just have to come in occasionally. You'll be able to see as we're going through this. What else is important? Yeah, you need phalanx. The damage gets absolutely crazy towards the later phases, and you're going to have to alternate mitigation with the other tank. That's something that you're going to need to set up beforehand. As a tank, you'll also most likely be expected to memorize which runes are associated to which platforms down below, and it will be one of your responsibilities to make sure that you go and hit that platform before the timer runs out. There are resources around which show which runes equal what platform. I don't have it in here today, but I'm sure you'll be able to find that if you go looking for it. And yeah, let's get into it. And I'll just start off by saying a big thank you to the team as well. We've got lots of Dreadnoks in here, Vikings represented, and of course Gus from Cobra. So at the first point, DPS stay out, I run in, I KV, we all go artifacts. Spamming enforced threat just whenever. The actual aggro of the boss doesn't seem to do much. Doesn't seem to directly attack anybody when they've got threat. So this is the first tank buster. This does a great deal of damage. That's why I'm running Iron Warrior. That's just to help with a bit of survivability. A particularly dangerous thing you've got to watch out for is when the bulls spawn. This seems to be a boss that doesn't naturally have combat advantage like every other boss does. So when those bulls spawn, like so, it actually gives the boss combat advantage, which effectively doubles the damage. As you can see there. So the strategy for that, obviously in the build video I put up I said I was using second wind. If you use second wind you will definitely survive that with Iron Warrior, but you can also, if you move out far enough, you can just take yourself out of the combat advantage position. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it does crit as well, which is another pain in the backside. So in this first phase there's not a hell of a lot to do. It's just stay alive, move your tank buster out, don't hit the other tank, don't hit any DPS. Your responsibility here on the right, as you can see, is to tie up those two balls. Those two balls push. So what you're trying to do is keep it away from the other tank and stop it from getting around to the DPS, because it will push them off. And then you just hop down. Your team, whoever's calling, might ask you to just stay up for a little bit longer so that we get our artifacts back in time for this first article down at the bottom. And what you want to do is drop down, well, at least one tank wants to drop down on this side and make sure they're picking up these mobs so that they don't start laying down AoEs at the DPS. And I get the aggro of these. The main reason to maintain aggro on the Zulkers here is because they do a cone-shaped mechanic, which rather than being a push is a pull. So it's going to orientate to whoever has the threat. Which, if you're not careful and you've got them pointing in a weird direction, can just drag someone straight off the edge of the platform. So whilst they should be sort of paying attention to it, you also don't want to have it pointed directly into the DPS group. Those flashing skulls there were an execution mechanic. You have a limited amount of time once that happens to kill this before it pops up, before it kills everybody. And then when you kill these Zulkers, a rune pops in the sky. And that rune has an associated platform here. There's a symbol that pops up in the sky, and it has an associated rune on the platform. So you usually get nominated as 1, 2, or 3, and that will determine which Zulkir's death is the symbol you need to find the rune for. And then if everything goes well, the mobs get wiped by the Mythlar Blast, and then you jump up here. If you're not positioned, well, this is the jumping phase, okay. So you can take a second to position yourself with this. There are more optimal places to place yourself on the platform so that you have an easier time getting up and over. This is affected by movement speed as well. So the more movement speed you have, the faster you move in the air, the easier it is to get up there, within reason. And the reason why I'm positioned over here is so that I can pick up the heals that the healers are throwing out. Start of phase 2, you always get that tank buster. And as you can see, it nearly wiped me out there. And starting from phase 2 is when the hypo is going to start coming in, and we will have to share mitigation. So you don't need to do this in advance, but in Master you certainly should be coming in for this hypo, sharing the damage even if you're not mitigating yourself. And then obviously make sure to move back into position. And make sure you're picking up these balls. At this stage the hypo it doesn't have the combination of the dot and the hypo, so it's not quite as bad as in the later phases. But you still want to be doing everything you can to make sure those DPS aren't getting death stacks. It can all go very wrong very quickly when the DPS start getting too many death stacks in. There are a couple of situations where immediately after that mitigation will be a tank buster, so keep your eyes out for that. And there's some awkward timings as well around artifacts and tank busters that you need to be aware of. Now obviously the DPS in this group is incredibly strong, so the way this is going may not reflect the way that yours goes, but it's a great thing about the team. Incredibly strong players. Be careful when you're jumping off the top there. You can quite easily kill yourself with falling damage. And there's the symbol. And just make sure you're getting up here in time to get your arty and mountain, to make sure you get a good call on this. Whichever tank isn't staying with the DPS should be going ahead, either pulling the mobs or pulling the Zulker closer in to avoid the mobs. And when you go around this platform, you're going to want to be shielded up quite a lot of the time. Not just because there's a lot of red AoEs on the ground, and since the screen is flashing red as well, it can be quite hard to see what's going on. But also, obviously, our AP regenerates with our shield up. And if you happen to have deep breathing on, that will also be triggered by shielding up. And quite lucky this time we managed to get in with the healers. Now there are two different ways to come up from this platform, and one of them is significantly easier than the other one. By moving clockwise, you're positioning the DPS onto the easier side to get up. The other reason for going clockwise is because it means you hit the Zulkir before you hit the mobs. It just reduces the possibility that the DPS's big hits are going to go onto the mobs instead of the Zulkir. You may have some melee in here to just greed a little bit, so make sure you pop your KB, keep them safe. Now you do actually need to be quite careful sometimes with those lasers across the ground. Some of them do hit incredibly hard, and if you happen to not have much stamina at the time, you can quite easily get messed up by them. Now tank busters actually get less frequent the more that the later the phases are. You see, that was a little mistake on my part. I should have been in that hypo then mitigating, but luckily they survived. Incidentally, in the earlier phases, having the manticle ring on can be quite useful to kill those balls. Yeah, that tank buster there is the worst one, I think, the one that's directly after that mitigation. Because it's mitigation, tank buster, then artifacts. It gets but I mean, to be fair, it's not with like difficult mechanics or anything, it's just a bit of an awkward sequence. And again, we just stay up a little bit longer. Those Zulkers will pop as soon as everybody's down. If you wait long enough, they'll just pop anyway, but they will delay slightly until people get down usually. I actually switched into using, was it Earthshaker? Yeah, I think it's called Earthshaker. So my new strategy now is to fall down to here, pop in force threat, slam the ground, stun those mobs, and then just gives a bit more breathing room for those dodgy AoEs on the ground. You want to be a bit careful with this ice. If you threaten and rush onto the ice, you can end up sliding a lot further than you intend to. That's the cone I'm talking about. You can shield up through it. Don't think... Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can shield every single control effect in here. Apart from the actual Mythal blast from the centre. But that only triggers if people stand on the wrong platforms. So as soon as someone does stand on one of these platforms, a very aggressive dot starts. That's why we wait just a few seconds until people are in position to reduce the length of time that dot is active. I've got potions of rejuvenation slotted on the belt bar as well, and that can just take the edge off if you do end up in a position where you've got no healer coming up here. And like I say, you've got time. You've got time to get up here. You don't need to be panicking. You can give yourself a second, look around, position, jump. You're better off spending the extra couple of seconds and not falling off than rushing, falling down, especially if you're a DPS. And this is where everything can quite easily go to shit. You can see just that outrageous damage coming in. Healers really need to be on point. DPS also need to be on point, killing all these balls. And yeah, this phase is one where you want to be closer rather than further away. You still pick up your balls, but be close enough to be picked up by the AoE heals that they're thrown out. And KV is incredibly useful for getting your stamina back. And, you know, protecting people. See, the animation time on Iron Warrior is so long it can cause some problems. But the damage resistance is very nice. Oof. Yeah, some big damage coming in on those sometimes. I would say, you know, when it gets to this phase, don't blame your healers if you die or anything. It's they've got enough going on. And that's it. Like I say, I wouldn't say not boring necessarily as a tank, but it is probably some of the easiest tank mechanics of trials that we've had for a while. Your main thing is going to be memorising those runes, being strong enough to take that tank buster, even when the combat advantage damage comes in. Obviously, even I had a few close calls there. And just try and enjoy it. You know, You do occasionally get some nice loot from here, as you'll see in a second. I do believe that's the second set of those mythic boots that I got. So, yeah, these were quite successful runs for me. Alright guys, that's it. That's the trial. That's how to tank it. A lot of the responsibility is not even on your shoulders for this one. It's very much healer and DPS coordination. Your main job's just going to be take the big hits out, don't fall off, and memorise your runes. And we'll leave it there. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you like a lot of videos, please subscribe. Another massive thank you to the team. That's Dreadnoks, Vikings, and Cobra. Next video is going to be a Warlock build video. I have actually got quite lucky with some of the drops in here, so it's going to be a fully optimised trial build for Master Shackles of Divinity. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.